Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story, so here goes. I'm an only child. My mom, Susan, died from breast cancer at age 53 7 years ago. It completely devastated my dad. They had been together since college and were the same age, with my dad being a few months older. I'm 24 now, and had just graduated university with my degree in computer science when the main events unfolded. I attended on a full academic scholarship. This detail becomes important later. My dad met my now stepmother, Karen, when she was my mom's nurse at the hospital during her final days. Karen played the perfect role to gain my dad's trust. She was compassionate toward him, nurturing, comforting after my mom's passing. I was 17 at the time and old enough to sense that she was just trying to worm her way into getting access to my dad's wealth, but it was up to him if he wanted to pursue a relationship with her. I was in my last year of high school and had just earned a scholarship to attend university out of state the following year. My dad mourned my mom for a year, and that whole time Karen would call to check in on him every month or so, in my opinion to scope out the possibility of sinking her claws into him. After a year passed, Karen took off the gloves and aggressively pursued my dad. Karen was only 38 when she and my dad started dating. I didn't like her, but at the same time, my dad at least didn't seem as depressed anymore, so I tried to be less pessimistic about her and give her the benefit of the doubt. In my gut, I didn't trust her though. But we have German roots, and at least in my family, the son doesn't tell his father what to do or even offer opinions. Karen is originally from Poland, if you're curious. My father was an extremely successful investment banker during his career and accumulated a sizable fortune. I'll spare you the details, but after 6 months of dating, Karen and my father got married. My dad never truly got over my mom, though, and his health was deteriorating even though he was only 55 at the time. Since his condition was worsening, he called me aside and asked point blank, "Son, what do you need to get yourself established in life?" I told him I don't need anything, that I'm a grown man and can take care of myself, but what was he even talking about? He'd be around for decades more. I did remind him that he had living sisters with children, my aunts and cousins. I also reminded him that I had a full scholarship for university, so he shouldn't worry about giving me any money. He passed away just a year later at only 57. I've of course seen plenty of movies, so I consider the conspiracy theory that maybe my dad's nurse wife poisoned him and manipulated him into signing over all his money to her, but I honestly don't think that's what happened. Other relatives didn't like Karen either, but they knew my dad was completely in love with my mom and that her death utterly crushed him. Long story short, my dad bequeathed his 4-bedroom house to me even though I wasn't expecting it and didn't ask for it. He left a small inheritance to each of his sisters and their children. He left around 80% of all his existing wealth to Karen, which amounted to several $1,000,000. My dad essentially ignored me because he's generous to a fault and still gave me a few $100,000, which were obviously very useful. Karen tried to put on a friendly front, but I could tell she was furious that she didn't also get my dad's house. That belonged to me, and I had the legal documents to prove it. She was especially angry because we live in an extremely affluent and trendy area, and houses are hard to come by and easily sell for massive profits. During the first few months after my dad's passing, I had the sickening, creepy experience of realizing that Karen was trying to feel me out to see if I might be into some kind of relationship with her. Gross. She still lived at the house, though, because over the last 3 years she had gotten used to residing there and acting like she owned it. And even though I officially owned it, I was always away at university and only visited my dad's old place once every couple of months, and even then it wasn't to see Karen, but to visit my cousins who lived just a few miles away. I downplayed the fact that it was actually my house, and over the months I think Karen gradually forgot that she really had no legal right to live there. She probably believed that sooner or later, because I never asked her for any of the millions of my dad's dollars that she now had, I was somehow independently wealthy and would just give up my house to her. I knew I'd eventually have to take action when she started dating some new guy, Vlad, only 6 months after my dad was buried, and one time when I came home from university after graduating, she and her new boyfriend, some sleazy-looking dude who was only a few years older than me, were acting like I was a guest in my own home and that they owned it. I played along. Karen told me, "I gave your old Xbox to Vlad's nephew because you're too old to play video games anyway. I don't even know this mother ducker and you give away my Xbox to give to some other a-hole who I also don't know." I quickly changed all my Wi-Fi passwords that same day. I smiled, but I knew what I had to do eventually. She also said, "Vlad and I are getting married because I just can't mourn your father forever. I have to move on with my life." I tell her that I graduated university and already secured a job with a local tech company and will soon find a new place to live. She looks thrilled, especially the part about me finding a new place soon. Then, in a patronizing way, she says, "You're always welcome to stay at our house, though, whenever you want." Thanks, Karen, really generous of you. What I really said was that I would probably have my own place in 3 months. She said that was wonderful because she intended to go to her homeland to have a wedding with Vlad and then a honeymoon. She assured me it would be a local affair. Otherwise, I'd invite you, honey. And anyway, I know you're so busy. I congratulated her. She asked me if I could watch over the house for her. Watch my own house? Sure. What I actually said was, of course, I would take care of the house. I was careful not to say your house. She and her sleazeball fiancé, who I am 100% sure is only with her for her money, went on their trip and I immediately put out ads on rental websites offering to lease my house. I hired movers and had all of Karen's furniture and belongings boxed up and put into a storage rental facility. I kept all of my parents' original furniture that they had before my dad met Karen. Locks? Changed all of them. Within days, I was inundated with inquiries about my amazing furnished house with fantastic views. I rented it to a wonderful young couple, a lawyer and his schoolteacher wife with 2 preteen children. They paid me their first and last month's rent up front and signed a year-long lease. I warned them about my crazy stepmother who thinks this is her house, but I gave them contact info for my lawyer, the same one my dad used, in case they needed any assurance that I was legit. I also gave my lawyer the storage facility information, including the fact that I generously paid 4 months of storage fees in advance, which was a whole month longer than Karen's Polish honeymoon getaway. I then found a great apartment in the city near my new job. There I met a woman at a restaurant I frequented after long workdays. We've been dating for 6 months now and are engaged to be married. Karen, of course, tried to raise hell when she realized she got kicked out of my house, but my lawyer quickly shut her down without me ever having to speak to her garbage face again. From what I heard, her and her trashy husband left the country, and I assume they're blowing through my dad's money and will soon be broke like typical leeches once they've depleted what they think is an endless fortune. So maybe Karen will go and try to exploit some other lonely man into giving her his life savings. Speaking of money, the house that I rent out is generating so much income that I'm not only able to help pay for my cousin's college tuitions, but I moved into a larger apartment of my own with my fiancé. I love my job, but really, I could survive solely on renting my dad's old house. And to think, if Karen had only been cooler and nicer, I might have let her stay at the house, just to be a good sport. And definitely if she stayed the hell out of my personal spaces. But no, she had to act all entitled, so I had to make her homeless as a wedding gift to herself. Postscript. I bought a new Xbox, even though I didn't use my old one that often. It didn't matter. It wasn't for Karen to give away. You don't give away other people's belongings. You give away your own things. Which is why I chose to kick Karen out of my house, because it's mine, and I decide who lives there. Karen tried pleading. "But I'm your stepmother! This was your father's house!" I replied, "Exactly. It was my father's house that he left to me, not you. You had no legal claim whatsoever." Her eyes burned with hatred as the reality sank in. "You ungrateful little worm! I took care of your father in his final days." "No, that was your job that you got paid for," I corrected her. "My father made his wishes clear in his will. Now get out before I call the police." She screamed expletives at me until my lawyer threatened lawsuits. Karen and Vlad stormed out, suitcases in hand like the classless leeches they were. Good riddance. The next one is an entitled people story. I never wanted to be the kind of person who rocked the boat or caused trouble in my community. When my wife and I moved into our cozy little house in a quiet subdivision, we expected to settle in and become part of the neighborhood. That dream was swiftly crushed by the power-hungry president of the Homeowners Association. Let's call her Karen. Karen seemed to relish lording her authority over anyone she could. The homeowner association in our subdivision was fairly strict, but Karen took things to the extreme. We'd hear stories of her harassing folks over the slightest infractions. Things like yard decorations being half an inch too close to the property line or garbage bins visible from the street on non-collection days. Harmless things that hardly warranted the amount of bullying she subjected people to. We tried to avoid Karen, hoping her petty tyranny would never turn its sights on us. Unfortunately, that changed when I suffered a spinal cord injury that left me paralyzed from the waist down. After months of rehab, I was finally able to come home, but I now required the use of a wheelchair to get around. My doctor recommended I get a service dog to assist with day-to-day tasks like retrieving items I dropped. I was anxious about the added responsibility of caring for a dog, but Diego, my golden retriever service dog, made life so much easier. The first time Karen spotted Diego, she came storming over to our house, already firing off accusations before she even made it to the doorstep. According to her, the homeowner association bylaws clearly prohibited pets of any kind. She ranted about how service animals were just a lie people made up to skirt the rules and that she wouldn't stand for it. No matter how much I tried explaining that Diego was a highly trained service dog, not just a regular pet, Karen refused to listen. Her harassment persisted for weeks. She would bang on our door at all hours to demand Diego's removal. She circulated nasty rumors, trying to get other neighbors to turn against us. She even videotaped Diego through our windows, hoping to catch him doing something that didn't fit the role of a service dog. But Diego's training was rock solid. He never faltered. I started looking deeper into the homeowner association bylaws. It turned out there was actually an allowance for service animals, provided the owner produced documentation from a medical provider. I gladly supplied this, assuming it would get Karen off my case. But she simply rejected it, sticking to her claim that service dogs were just a sham. Finally fed up, I decided to get legal advice. The lawyer informed me that the Fair Housing Act protected my right to have a service dog, regardless of what the homeowner association's rules said. Any further harassment from Karen over Diego's presence would be discriminatory and illegal. Armed with this knowledge, I hatched a plan for the ultimate malicious compliance. The next time Karen started her bullying routine over Diego, I calmly informed her I had spoken to my lawyer and that she was violating federal law. As expected, she immediately dismissed this, asserting the homeowner association could make any rules it wanted. I simply replied, "Fine. If service dogs are banned, then I'll have no choice but to comply." Karen's face lit up, thinking she had won. But I wasn't done yet. Of course, if I can't have my service dog, I won't be able to remain living here independently. I'll need to make alternate arrangements. Still oblivious to my intent, Karen sneered and told me good riddance. The very next day, I called an ambulance to come move me to an assisted living facility. As the EMTs wheeled me out the front door, the look of shock and rage on Karen's face was priceless. She demanded to know what I was doing. "Simply following your rules," I replied. "Since I can't have Diego's assistance, I clearly can't care for myself here anymore. But not to worry, my lawyer will be in touch regarding the homeowner association's violation of federal law." Karen's plot had backfired tremendously. Within the week, she was frantically calling me, backpedaling on her stance about service dogs, but the wheels were already in motion for a legal challenge that would force a change to the discriminatory homeowner association bylaws. I settled my complaint in exchange for the homeowner association officially permitting service dogs and emotional support animals. Karen also had to publicly apologize for her harassment and take sensitivity training about disability rights. Diego and I were thrilled to move back home, now able to live in peace. Karen steers clear of us whenever we're out doing our daily walks, and if she dares pipe up about Diego again, she knows I won't hesitate to unleash another round of malicious compliance. The next one is a petty revenge story, so we have our fair share of homeless people in my town. The usual. Ones at the end of exit ramps with signs, or at the lights of highways. Usually I don't give anything because realistically usually don't have anything to give. But yesterday, I'd had a decent day and actually found myself with a couple of bucks on hand. I see one particular man at a freeway light often, and I know some of his story. He does use any money collected to purchase food, drink, not alcohol that I've seen, not that it's any of my business anyway, and will accept items graciously, not just cash. So I pull up to the light, wave him over, and hand him the $1.04 I had. He thanks me and happens to walk across the intersection to the same gas station I was also heading to in the first place. I go in to get gas. He grabs some of the hot food and a cheap fountain drink. All good, right? Nope. In comes Karen, the typical look and everything. Big sunglasses, the haircut, yoga pants, all of it. She immediately storms over to the register and demands a manager. I'm only mildly paying attention because I just need gas. Manager comes forward and this woman points that ugly $1 orange red long nail at me. "I need police here. That woman gave that drug addict money outside your establishment," and a slew of other really random and ever-growing nonsense. At this point, the three other customers, me, the man I helped, and now a very interested customer, are staring at her. Manager looks so confused, so I chimed in. I said regardless that it isn't her business, I gave the guy a few bucks across the street and he's buying food. Manager is like, "Okay." Karen isn't happy. She is screaming that obviously the station is a front for drugs and all sorts of crazy crap. At this point, I've lost interest. Man buys his food, walks out, I get to register, ask for gas. Is Karen done? Haha, no. She demands that if I'm going to pay for his drugs, then I need to buy her gas. She tells the cashier and manager to put, I think, like 40 on whatever pump she was at on my dime and storms out. We all just blink. I chuckled a bit and told them how much gas I needed. I was going to just ignore it, but I'm petty. I said put $1 on her pump. Her screaming when the pump stopped at $1 was beautiful. I got my gas and left while she was storming back into the station. Best dollar I've ever wasted. And glad she didn't actually harass the poor guy just trying to eat. The next one is a malicious compliance story. This beautiful country of ours has a fairly low population density generally for reasons dating back to the infamous famine. Watch Black 47 for reference. It also, however, has layer upon layer of civil servants and bureaucracy. We have a beautiful system of government where we have 2 houses and a representative for every 3,000 people as a fact of law. Underneath that, we have a local government system with local authorities in each county and city, each with their own elected councilors and administration. Planning, fire safety roads, refuse collection, and some other things are administrated by these local councils, which leads to the public service being the largest employers in the country, all in an island with a southern republic that has with an area of 26,000 square miles with at the time about 31 or 32 local authorities and a population of 5.5 million plus or minus. It's totally over the top, but that's a discussion for another day. Anyhow, while working for one such local authority as a senior executive engineer, a fire officer, my good friend, an extremely intelligent civil engineer, had the misfortune of being gifted with a new boss, a spanking clean, brand new inbox county engineer in his first role in that position, full of the proverbial pea and vinegar. Now, this particular county was landlocked by other counties and is a particularly odd shape with a brand new motorway going through it. There are many parts of the county that the only way to get to by road is through other counties. This is important. Most staff use their own cars, and once a month you filled out your mileage sheets, sent it to your direct line manager for sign-off, who sent it up the chain and claimed it back at a rate of so much per mile. It was often a nice addition to the paycheck and more than covered the cost of maintaining and running the vehicle. If you crossed your LA's boundary, you had to fill out another sheet explaining why and get it signed off by your line manager. Under their previous boss, they had devised a system where no one had to bother with the mileage sheets necessarily on a monthly basis, and could let it slide for a few months and then submit them all together and get a nice bonus in one lump. Nice if you had a special occasion or a holiday coming up. An easy savings plan, if you will. No one bothered with the second sheet because you crossed the boundary so many times a week that they became irrelevant. Cue new boss's arrival who insisted on doing everything by the book. Didn't like the way that things worked previously and was going to sort it all out, straighten out everything, and kick everyone into line. He called everyone into a meeting, explained what he was doing in his best authoritative manner, and insisted on monthly submittal of all expenses and mileage sheets and everything listed down to the finest detail, including reasons for your trips, etc. And they had to be explained fully and in detail, otherwise the mileage sheets would be sent back unsigned. My friend and the rest of the staff went away from the meeting, wondering how they were going to deal with this new way of working. After a few days stewing, my friend came up with a solution to the issue and then called his workmates. They had a little discussion amongst themselves about how to deal with things and came up with a plan for petty revenge. Everyone under the direction of the new boss found that the extreme ends of the county is where they were needed to work that month. The staff then slightly redesigned all of their trips so that they crossed county boundaries multiple times a day, 6 days a week. At the end of month 1, this plan culminated with the submission of thousands of permission confirmation sheets to cross the county boundary to be signed by the new CE after his first month. It took him over 4 weeks to get through that batch, and on week 4 after receiving the second month's batch, all the senior staff were called into a meeting, the agenda of which was kept very hush-hush. The only thing that ever came out of that meeting was a quiet word from the senior staff that everything was going back to the way it used to work. A perfect teaching moment and petty revenge combined. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.